burger meat. They've put this to it. It's begun to stick to and dry to, some of that flesh with the blood and whatnot, and kind of coagulate into the and then they pull it off again. That's going to hurt. Right? That's going to hurt. No exceptional qualities. Behold the man. Look, here he is. I've beaten him within an inch of his life. Do we really have to kill him? That seems like the thought process in Pilate's mind, right? I don't find any fault in him. So picking up then in verse 5. Then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said to them, Behold the man. Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, Crucify him! Crucify him! Pilate said to them, You take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. Hey, that's a simple solution, right? For Pilate. You want to kill him? Guess what? You kill him. Hadn't he already offered this option to him? Hadn't he already offered, say, hey, if you want him to die, kill him. Right? You see, here's him saying, I ain't coming after you. You want him to die? You kill him. The Jews answered him, We have a law, and according to our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. Therefore, when Pilate heard that saying, he was more afraid and went into the praetorium and said to Jesus, Where are you from? But Jesus didn't give him an answer. Jesus gave no answer. Let's look at their law. Exodus 24 and verse 16. Exodus 24 and verse 16. Let's see if they had anything here. Somebody, if you would, read Exodus 24 verse 16. Maybe. Because that doesn't say that. That's not the right one, is it? Yeah, okay. Somebody else, thank you, Adam. You did a good job. I didn't. Leviticus 24, yeah. If you would, go ahead and add verse 15, if somebody would read 15 and 16. Yeah, Leviticus 24, 15 and 16. Okay, so how does this apply to the accusation that they made against Jesus? Yes. They understood clearly that he was placing himself on the same level as God, right? When he calls himself the Son of Man, when he calls himself the Son of God, when he refers to himself with the two words I am or ego eimi, right? When he refers to himself in that fashion, they know what he's saying. He's saying, I am God. It's clear to them. They understand. No uncertainty here. What he's saying to them. Right? He's claiming himself to be the Messiah. They didn't believe he to be the Messiah. Right? For whatever reason, they didn't think he was the Messiah. So they considered this blasphemy. Now, what does Leviticus 24 say is the punishment for such blasphemy? Huh? Death. In what way? Stoning. Not crucifixion, but stoning. And who was to do the stoning? Did he say, if someone blasphemes the name of God, then you should take him to a foreign entity, a foreign body, a foreign government, and have them crucify him, or have them kill him in some other way, or have them deal with him at all? Yeah, the congregation was to stone him to death. They want to refer to the law, but they don't want to refer all the way to the law. Was there capital punishment in the Old Testament? Yes, there was. But look at how it was to be carried out. It was to be carried out very personally. Not hired out, hey, look, we got a guy, why don't you hang him on the cross? We don't have to have anything to do with it. But stone him to death. I think we've talked about stoning in here before, right? When you stone somebody to death, think about it. When you stone someone to death, would you use smaller rocks or bigger rocks? They'd need to be bigger, wouldn't they? Because you can hurt somebody with little rocks, right? But it's hard to actually kill somebody with little rocks. Huh? Well, if you're David and you have a sling and God's involved, okay, but what we're talking about is a very different situation here. We're talking about folks who were individually to throw rocks at someone until they were dead. Right? So think about that for just a moment. You'd have to have a rock that was big enough to potentially crush a skull or do damage to someone that would be fatal. So that would take a significant sized stone. Now, if it's a smaller rock, I can throw it a little bit farther, right? So I could be farther away, and if we had enough of us standing farther away, we could pelt him with these small rocks, but we probably couldn't kill him. In order to hurl a rock large enough to do damage, that type of damage that would kill someone, you got to be close enough to look them in the eyeball, don't you? I mean, Evan in here, I'm going to pick on you for a minute, Evan. Evan's a baseball player. He's an outfielder, right? Okay? So he's probably got the strongest arm in here. He's probably got the strongest arm in the room, right? Because he throws a baseball. If he can throw a baseball from center field to home plate, that's better than the rest of us. Guaranteed. But if he had a rock, let's say you had a rock, Evan, that weighed about 8 to 10 pounds, right? From center field, are you going to be able to throw that rock? No, you're not, are you? If you try to throw it that far, guess what? You're going to have shoulder surgery within a short amount of time. You're going to tear some things up, okay? The point is, when there was capital punishment in the Old Testament, it was up close and personal so that you saw the eyeballs of the person you are killing. God didn't say not to do it. In fact, he expected them to do it, but he wanted them to be invested in it so that they understood exactly what was taking place. Because life is very precious. Right? These Jews are saying, hey, we don't like this guy. We want to accuse him of doing something that should cost him his life. But we're not going to be invested in it as God plans. We want you to do it. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Right. Max makes a very good point. They're standing behind the Roman government like they're big and tough. You know, we're going to get you. Hey, big brother, go get him. Right? And you know, you see that sometimes in movies. The little guy will pick a fight and stand behind his big bodyguard, you know, for protection and say, okay, now fight him. Right? And now that big guy that we stand behind becomes our computer screen. It's easy. I'll get right to you, Steve. It's easy for us to be big and tough when there's something between us and the consequences, right? Especially when we have the anonymity of a computer screen. We need to, number one, we need to keep that in mind when others are coming at us. It's probably not something they would say if we were in person. And number two, we need to keep that in mind when we're on that other side and we have an issue with someone else. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. I have never in my life seen an argument won on Facebook. Social media. That is not the place to argue with someone. If you have a difference of opinion, don't settle it in the public forum like that. Work it out face to face. At least a phone call, right? Because anything can be said through the internet. But feelings still get hurt, don't they? People are still at stake. Brother Stump, what'd you have? Mm. Mm. Right. Right. Like as if having Rome do it kind of absolves you of responsibility. Yeah. But it didn't, did it? I mean, was Pilate responsible for the death of Jesus? Yeah. I mean, he ultimately gave the final order, didn't he? Even though he tried to wash his hands of it, he couldn't. Were the Jews responsible for the death of Jesus? Yeah. They were, weren't they? Now, peering just a little bit deeper into it, were you responsible for the death of Jesus? Oh, yeah, you were, weren't you? I mean, we weren't in that crowd, and we like to vilify them because what they did was villainous, right? Crucify, crucify. And we say, I would never stand in that crowd. I would never yell. I would never say free Barabbas and kill Jesus. But how many of us have sinned? And when you sinned, you know what you said? Free Barabbas and kill Jesus. Because, what's that? Yeah, my sin put him there. I mean, there's not a person on earth other than Jesus who didn't need that sacrifice to take place for the hope of their salvation. Right? So we were in the crowd when he brought him out and he said, look, I've beaten him within an inch of his life. Can't we just let him go? I don't see anything wrong with him. We were, with our sins, we were saying, crucify him. We don't like to think it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Mac's point is there are two things that killed Jesus. One was hatred, and we can see that, right? And we can see that pretty easy. When they're so bloodthirsty that they're saying, free Barabbas and kill Jesus. That's hatred at its highest form. But the other thing that killed Jesus was love. How did love kill Jesus? Yeah. For God so what? Loved the world that he did what? Gave his only begotten Son. So love killed Jesus. Love killed Jesus because, number one, he willingly went there. Number two, he could have stopped it. What kept him from calling the angels down to putting an end to his crucifixion? Love. Right? Love. Love for the Father, love for the plan that they instituted, and love for the man that they created, that he was willing to do that. Right. Yeah, have you ever done that with little kids? How much do you love me? I love you this much. Right? And so, kind of metaphorically, you ask Jesus, how much do you love me? And he stretched out his arms on that cross. Right? Unimaginable love that he showed for us. on that day. And the whole time, Pilate is trying to let them off the hook, right? Pilate's trying to get out of this. Pilate's trying to get them to back down. They would not. Their hatred was so strong that they wanted him dead, even to the point which, woe to you scribes and Pharisees, you what? Hypocrites. The scribes and Pharisees. The scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites aren't three different groups of people. The scribes and Pharisees are hypocrites, right? That's what the woes are. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. You are hypocrites. That's what he's saying, right? They were hypocrites. How are they hypocrites in this instance? Because we want him dead. We're going to refer to the law to claim that we need him dead because we're calling this blasphemy. We're supposed to do it, but we want you to. You see, that was the hypocritic nature. Steve. Okay, so maybe fear, maybe hatred. Can fear cause us to develop other emotions? In other words, what I'm saying is, could there be hatred in their heart based on their fear? Right? So then the two are kind of working sort of hand in hand. I think there was some fear, and Caiaphas illustrated that, didn't he? It's better for one man to die, than the rest of us, right? In other words, if we don't do something about him, he's going to take away what we have. So that fear of losing their position, sure, but it drove them to hate what he was doing, right? Because of the fear of what they were losing. So, I mean, you still have that, you still have both of them working together. So I think, yeah, that's got a good bit to do with it, sure. Okay, anything else on that? Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Think about this for just a moment, and we're going to talk about this in the sermon a little bit. Do you know there are more than 330 prophecies, direct prophecies in the Old Testament that Jesus directly fulfilled in his life? In excess of 330, right? So just imagine, over the Old Testament, God has said all of these things about Jesus. All of these things he's going to do. All of these things that man will do to him. All of these results that are going to take place as a result of these actions. All of these things are going to happen, right? And they build up to this point where it's going to accumulate. The majority of, well, not the majority, but a large portion of the prophecies that were made about him are being fulfilled in the very pages that we're reading right now. All of these things we're talking about were talked about by Isaiah, even as early as Genesis 3:15. He will bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel. That's about to take place, right? So what happens if all of this time, to all of humanity, all of these things were said, and then Jesus says, no, wait, time out, we're not doing it. What does that mean about God now? He's just done what? Lied. Is that even possible? That's not even possible, is it? And I think that's based on the statement he makes. Do you not know I could call 12 legions of angels, right? Was he commander over 12 legions of angels? Sure, he was. Was he going to call 12 legions of angels? Obviously not. Why? Well, because of love, right? Well, because of prophecy. Had he done so, it would have made God a liar. And listen, not only because he is God, so being God means that he cannot lie, right? So we understand that he was part of the promise and the prophecy about himself, right? So that he's not going to lie. So it's not going to call 12 legions of angels, right? That's not going to happen. Did he have command over them? Sure. But he loved us. He knew if he didn't do this, we have no hope. And he was here to fulfill the prophecies about him, right? I mean, he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan," when Peter offered him, options. He refused every time. Think about this for just a minute. What was the temptation when Satan took Jesus up onto a tall mountain? What did he promise him? Yeah, everything you can see. You look around, you see this, it's yours. Oh, what did he have to do? So he's promising him a kingdom. Okay. But it didn't involve a cross. It didn't involve a scourging. It didn't involve representing sin. Now, it would have been the ultimate sin, right? But it would have been his and not mine. Yeah. He was offering him to let this cup pass from him and still give him a kingdom. And Jesus said no. That's not the kingdom I'm here for. Right? What does he tell Pilate? If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm. Right? I'm not here for a physical kingdom. You, Satan, can't give me what I'm here for. Because what he was here to do was to bruise Satan's head. To fulfill that prophecy given to Adam in the garden. And Satan can't give him that. Right? So while I understand the hesitation and the 10,000 angels and would Jesus ever do that? No, obviously he never would have done that because he didn't. Right? But he does make the statement, do you not know I could call 12 legions of angels? Right? I mean, he I suppose, in some way he could have, because he said that he could have. But it was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. Because of his nature. Right? Because of his nature. What is he? He's the Word. And what is the Word? The Word is the truth. And so then he's not going to violate the word that he spoke to accomplish a short-term goal, which violates his nature. It's like people say, what is something God cannot do? You know, what's the one thing God can't do? Lie. Right, he can't lie. Well, I mean, can he sin? He can't sin either, can he? People ask, well, if he can't lie and he can't sin, he can do anything else. Well, yeah, he can do anything else. Well, can he make a circle that has straight lines? Can he make a circle with straight lines? Why not? Because that'd be a square or a rhombus or a rectangle or a triangle. Or it would be anything other than a square. It would violate the nature of the circle, right? Well, now that's true. It depends on what your definition of is, right? Yeah, you can okay. Now is it? Well, now it's actually a pyramid, but you know, if you want to look at it just right, you could call it a circle because you could draw a circle around it. And so, yeah, I mean, we could redefine it if we want to, but the simple reality is, by the actual definition of the thing, you know, he's not going to violate, you know, the nature of the circle. It's absurd. It's absurd. So the only things that he can't lie and he can't sin. Right? He can't be involved in darkness. Okay. Somebody have something? I thought I heard something. Okay. Moving forward, we'll look at a few more verses. We're not going to get probably very much farther because we're just about out of time. But as we let's pick up in verse, well, we stopped at 10, right? Jesus had no answer. Fulfilling prophecy, he was silent before his accusers. Then Pilate, verse 10, then Pilate said to him, Are you not speaking to me? Do you not know I have the power to crucify you and power to release you? Jesus answered, You have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin. So, Pilate is kind of full of himself at this particular instance. I'm stuck between a man who won't answer himself, won't give me a defense for himself, and people that want him to die. I don't want to kill him, but look, I need him to know that he's got to say something or I'm going to kill him. You're not going to talk to me? Here I've tried to set you free, despite the fact that I've beaten you within an inch of your life, for no reason, because you're not guilty. I've beaten you nearly to death, but I'm trying to save your life. Are you going to help me save your life or not? You got to talk to me so I can decide if you live or die. And Jesus' answer was, that's not your choice. The power that you think that you wield over me comes from someone higher than you. Right? Who was higher than him? Well, you could go up the chain of command, and on the planet, you're going to end at one place, and that's Caesar. So did Caesar have a role in killing Jesus? He did, didn't he? How? Yeah, if nothing else, he gave Pilate the authority to kill Jesus. Right? You have the authority to do that because somebody gave it to you. Who gave Caesar the authority to kill Jesus? God did, didn't he? Romans 13. Right? You have no power, but even Caesar doesn't have the authority without my blessing. Right? You don't have as much say in this as you think, Pilate. Therefore, because you don't have as much say as you think, there's somebody else that has a greater sin in this. And who was that? The Jews. Yeah, because they handed me over to you. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the illegal trial. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that they gave blood money to arrest me that they're later going to refuse to take back because it's blood money. You see the hypocrisy again. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. Right? So theirs is the greater sin. Now, the greater sin. But if theirs is the greater sin, does it mean that Pilate's sin is not a sin, Pilate's actions? He's not releasing him of responsibility here, is he? He's saying, you think you're in control of this. You're not in control of this. You're a part of it, but they handed me over to you. I'm letting it happen because that's the way that it has to happen, right? But the people that brought me to you are the ones with the greater sin, with the most to answer for. Now, what is the greater sin, the bigger sin? We like to make lists of sin, right? This sin is bigger than that sin, is bigger than that sin, and that sin is, oh, that's the biggie, right? I mean, murder. Whoa, now that's a bad sin. If you tell. Huh? It is. Okay, I'm not saying it's not. But what happens if you have the habit of telling just little white lies? What is a lie? A sin, isn't it? I mean, a lie is a sin. What are the wages of sin? And does Paul, does Jesus, does John, does Peter, is there anyone in the Scripture that says there is a different punishment for lesser or greater sins? If so, I need the Scripture reference. When we die in sin, what is the punishment. Hell. So don't look at a passage such as this and say, oh, they had the greater sin, so hell's going to be worse for them than it is for Pilate. I've never really seen in the Scriptures a description of the levels of punishment. And here's the reality of it. If there are levels of punishment and levels of reward, I'd rather have a broom closet in heaven than a penthouse in hell. How about you? I mean, there's nothing about heaven that's going to compare to how bad hell's going to be. Right? I would rather spend my day sweeping the streets of heaven than sitting in Satan's palace. What's that? Keep the gold shiny. Hey, look, man. If that's what you want me to do, to be here and to listen to the angelic chorus and to not have any more tears and not have any more crying and to spend heaven, to be in heaven, I'll take it. I'll take it. Every day of the week and twice on Sunday, as they say. Lord willing, we'll pick up there next week. No, I won't. Because I'll be out of town. And I'm not sure who's teaching yet. But I won't be here. So somebody may pick up there next week, but it won't be me.